Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be discussing, as an ongoing series for our sanctuary course, modern conceptions and usages of sanctuary. Would it be English as a second language programs? But today we're going to be talking with Michael LeSawyer about the Furgary Fishing Village in Hudson, New York. I'm going to turn it to Michael, and I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions and going to have a nice interview. So just to start off, I wanted to ask you, Michael, just to talk a little bit about your own personal relationship with the shacks. I know you've been dealing with them for more than 15 years, so if you could just speak a little bit about your relationship with them and with the people and the community and its usages and how it's been applied in the community.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael LeSawyer. I can share with you my experience with the North Dock, Furgary Fishing Village, some have called it, collection of boathouses on the North Bay in the city of Hudson, New York. I was born in Hudson, New York in 1954. My earliest recollections of that area were when I was a young boy, and I know the date because in Hudson in September 10th, 9/10, 1963, there was a big train wreck in the city of Hudson, where a New York Central passenger train slammed into a freight train as it rounded Mount Marino and entering the city of Hudson. And I happened to be in a boat at the time and witnessed the whole event. And I looked it up recently on microfilm at Columbia Green Community College, and I knew there was this train wreck, and I knew that I'd been in the newspaper about it. So I wanted to look up the old newspaper. So I found the old Register Star newspaper on microfilm, and it was 1963, and there was a special edition that came out, and it talked about the train crash entering the city of Hudson. And at that time, I saw it from a boat, and we kept the boat at the North Dock at that time. So I know 1963, my earliest recollection of the place. My father was an attorney in the city of Hudson, and we kept a boat on the North Dock. We didn't keep it tied up at a dock, but we pulled it off to the side of one of the cabins down there and left it, and we kept the motor in the trunk of the car in the tank of gas, because my father would say, don't leave anything down there, it'll get stolen. There's a bunch of thieves and drunks down there. Now, one of the thieves and drunks happened to be the guy in the next office from him. He had his law practice on the second floor of a building on Warren Street in Hudson. And the next office over was the office of a fellow named Conrad Shue. And Conrad Shue was the fire chief. And he had a cabin down there at Furgary on the North Dock. And one of them was Shuey's cabin. Shuey was my father's friend. They had offices next door. Shuey was the local guy. He was the chief of the fire department, and he's also the guy that made everyone's false teeth. And that was his thing. That in the fire department, and he had a cabin out on the island, which is what we call Middle Ground Flats. And he had that shack there in the North Dock. And there was a bunch of other fellows there that had shacks in that area, the North Dock. And we use our boat for hunting in the fall, and rides up and down the Hudson River. It was convenient. We kept the motor in the trunk of the car. And as I grew up in the city of Hudson, those shacks were always there. And there was always a different collection of guys going in and out. And I never paid too much attention to the place. So, I recall my father having a boat there. And I learned boating, and we always had boats. I've always had a boat all my life, from dinky outboards to real fast boats, and I've got a boat today. So that was always a place where people just kind of went. A bunch of boathouses, some people call shacks, north side of the city of Hudson.
So yeah, would you say that at any point in its long history, did the shacks ever serve as a permanent residence for people, or as like a place for them to get away from whatever was going on in their lives?
I'm glad you asked. Some people will say that people live there, and I want to get out to everyone that no one ever lived there. There's no running water, and that's a big issue if you're going to live anywhere. Heat, those cabins weren't built to be heated, and it's cold. Now, people would have a few too many beers after a long day on the river and maybe fall asleep in a chair and wake up there in the morning, or maybe somebody was on the outs with their other half for a little while, and they kind of camped out and made it a place to hang their hat for a week or two until they smoothed things out at home. Or another situation, somebody lost their job at the factory, and then they couldn't pay the rent, and they didn't really have a place to hang their hat for a week or two, but nobody ever made it a permanent residence. And I'd like to get that out of there, because there are people who say, oh yeah, so-and-so lived down there. Yeah, he lived down there in the summer of 1975 for 3 months. It was never a permanent kind of thing. Nobody ever got any mail down there, although we did have electricity that we paid for, and everybody had meters. And sometimes you could claim ownership of a shack if you were paying the electric bill. I've heard arguments in there. It's my name on the electric bill, it's my shack, you can't kick me out. And some shacks, somebody didn't pay the electric bill, they just got cut off. And nobody, because a shack is a lot of work. It's not a free ride. Roofs leak, ice comes in the wintertime, and things freeze, and the ice attaches itself to the building, and the tide goes out, and it's pulling away the structure from underneath, and trees fall on buildings, and there's a lot of maintenance involved and work involved in keeping an electric bill. And so even though it's a free shack down on the side of the Hudson River, it's not work free.
Yeah, and so who was maintaining the shacks?
They're maintained by whoever's happened to be claiming it as theirs this week, and that could change. There are guys that say, yeah, that's mine, and other people recognize, yeah, that's Joe's, leave it alone, that's Joe's shack. But it comes with responsibility. There's things to do. I know guys that spent money on their stuff, and little dumb things like pipes that go around wood stoves cost $200, and chimneys cost $300, and the wood stove costs $400, and then there's wood to be delivered, and then the beer to be kept around for when people come over, and it's a lot of work, and some people get tired of it after a while, and it's not their thing. And they stopped going. But it was kind of a nice resource for the community. And everybody down there knew everybody else, because we'd gone to the same schools a year or two apart, or 10 years apart, or 20 years apart, or you went to another school in the county and you were friends with so-and-so, but related to this guy because she got married to the cousin. So everybody kind of knew everybody. But I forget where I'm going with this. I'm getting lost.
Yeah, actually, could you talk a little bit about the cross section of the kinds of people that were living there? Like what members of the community, and how did that look?
Kind of everybody. That was kind of a unique thing maybe about small towns or the city of Hudson, New York. Everybody goes to the same school. We don't have a choice. Well, at one time there was a small Catholic school in the city of Hudson, but basically the Hudson City school system And because everybody went to kids, everyone went to school together as kids, they became adults and did all sorts of different things. Some become doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, and some guys are plumbers and welders. But your friendships remain that you developed in elementary school and high school. So even though you might be a dentist and Johnny's driving a truck, you were buddies in 7th grade. So these are your friends now because you're in the same town. And that's part of growing up there. So everybody was represented down there at the North Dock, and it became everybody that went down in the North Dock was down there for a reason. They were hunters or fishermen or recreational boaters that like to use the Hudson River. And that area is being they want to transform it now into a kayak zone. And the experienced guys that have been boating for years and years found out that the ideal vehicle for the Hudson River is an aluminum boat with an outboard motor, because you can run it up on the shore and explore the shoreline and get in and out underneath bridges and do all the fun stuff that's to be done on the river.
So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about in the summer of 2015, it started in 2012, there was a change of hands of the land itself from the city to the state. And then in the summer of 2015, the residents who were down at the docks, they were evicted. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about partially what you've already spoken to about the transformation of that land by the Conservation Society, but also about how that change came about, what sort of politics were involved based on your knowledge. Yeah.
Based on my bird's eye view of the situation, because 1972, I left the city of Hudson and I went away to college in Boston for 7 years. And then I lived in Vermont for a couple of years, and then I wound up spending 20 years living in Key West, Florida. And I moved back to this area in 2001. And in 2001, my good buddy that I know since kindergarten, he was one of the owners, claimed ownership of one of the shacks down at the North Dock. And I would go down there every day. It was a nice, convenient way to, after dinner, give you something to do. I'd tell my wife, I'm going down to shacks. And I go down there for an hour or two and visit whoever happened to show up that night, and then go home. And you get to see all your friends, but they don't have to come over to your house and track in the mud and the dirt, and they can wear their dirty clothes. And so it was a great place to go. But anyway, 1989, we got a mayor in the city of Hudson, and his idea was to get rid of the shacks. So in 1989, folks down there kind of sort of writing on the wall that one of these days, whoever they is, one of these days they're going to come in here and kick us all out. So the shacks could never be really improved upon too much, because you didn't know at any one time when the city's going to come and take them away from you. Fast forward to state of New York tells all the towns up and down the Hudson River that if they want any more money from the state of New York, they have to come up with an LWRP, a local waterfront revitalization plan. And so they told these towns that, and the city of Hudson has to come up with a plan now if they want to get money from the state of New York. So they get somebody to make up this plan, and they didn't invite anybody to the planning table that was a member of the community of the North Dock, because there was no particular North Dock club, there was no Furgary club, there was no list of members, there were no dues or fees, it was just a community, and 12 different little shacks, houses, boat houses down by the river where this community carried on its business, and there was no membership list. So, but none of the people from that community were invited to the planning board when the city of Hudson had to come up with this LWRP to please the state of New York. Now, the city of Hudson, like most cities and towns everywhere, is broke. They don't have 10 cents to get new shoelaces. for the guys on the truck. And, so they got to come up with this plan, and so they got to hire somebody, appoint somebody from city staff or a local volunteer to be part of the plan, to come up with the plan, and so we appoint somebody to head the plan. And that person that headed the plan invited other people to the table. The cement company, St. Lawrence Cement, they got a seat. Their attorney got a seat at the table when they came up with the plan, and there were other people from around the town, but nobody from down at the shacks had a look at the plan. Now, also invited to the plan was the Columbia Land Conservancy. Let's invite them to come up with a plan for Hudson's waterfront. I mean, they're Columbia County Land Conservancy, nice folks. They make paths through the woods and, habitats. So they're nice folks, we'll invite them. And at that time, Columbia Land Conservancy was fat with money because they got a big check when the gas company put in the Pilgrim pipeline. So they had money and they had planners, and we'll come to the table and help you come up with a local waterfront plan. That'd be great. They came up with something, an inch thick, color glossy photographs, beautiful plan, and they took that area known as the North Dock, Furgary, whatever, and they took an eraser to it, and they put in a gazebo. And there was the plan. And when it came time for the city council to look at the plan that their planning people had come up with and improved their plan and put it in front of them, and they said, look at this beautiful, this color glossy photographs, and everything in the plan is nice. And the attorney says, oh yeah, we should vote for the plan, and all the council members says, oh yeah, we'll go with the plan, that's the plan. So they all voted for the plan. That didn't include anything with the shacks. So now they got this plan. And then Hudson gets a new mayor. Now the attorney that was involved representing the cement company also works for the city of Hudson. And an attractive attorney. And we get a new mayor who's kind of new, and he comes on the job. Well, what do you want me to do? And she says, well, why don't you start with the plan? And she throws the plan on his lap. And why does she push the plan? Because as soon as the plan goes into effect, then the cement company gets locked in at their property tax rate. Because then that's what they're going to be called, and that's what we'll tax them at. And the cement company is happy with that, because if you look at the original LWRP document, they called the cement company's property a deep water port. If you look at the updated LWRP, everywhere they call the 7 or 8 occasions where they use deep water port, the word deep is erased. Now it's just a water port. Why? Because the deep water port on the east side of the Hudson River that has rail access is worth millions. So the cement company wants their stuff, just a water port, not a deep water port. And then you got an attorney in there, you got pushing the plan. You want to push the plan because then it locks up our client here, the cement company, and they'll be happy, keep their taxes down. So the plan gets pushed, and the new mayor comes in. He says, well, we'll look at the plan. And he looks at the plan, and he says, oh, these guys down there at the shacks, and down there around at that time at the shacks in the 2000s, there were people down there that smoked a little bit of marijuana. There were black people down there, and there were people that drank beer down there. And so they got a reputation. And the reputation it's a bad area. But my son was born in 2002, and I brought him down to the shacks every day in the little car seat that locked up in the back of the car, and used to sit him on the bar in one of the channels, and just don't blow smoke on him. He's a good kid, and he grew up down there, and he misses the place terribly, and he knows all the old fellas down there, and all of the black guys he knows that were down there, and the old ladies he knows down there, and he sees them up and downtown. And he didn't have any problems with any crime or drugs, and the police never had any problems down there because the police never responded. So I'm getting lost here. But anyway, so this shack's got this kind of reputation, and like some people wanted it closed up because they said, oh, it's dangerous down there. And it really wasn't dangerous, but people are down there, and if strangers come in, they look around, it's like, what do you want? We've got boats here, and there's a lot of equipment on the boats and fishing rods and things like that. We don't need people coming in here taking a look around because maybe they're going to come back later and steal something when nobody's here. So, we're kind of wary of people coming in. Like, what do you want down here? We got nothing but sharing the place. If people want to come down and launch a canoe or a kayak, yeah, go ahead, help yourself. But so that's the way it goes. So the plan comes in, and this mayor, he says, he looks at the plan, and he says, yeah, I can get those dirty guys out of down there and smoking marijuana and drinking beer and doing everything down there. And we got accused of all sorts of stuff down here that never happened. So anyway, the mayor comes in, he says, I'm going to be a nice guy because I know you fellas and I went to high school with you and we're all good buds and blah, blah, blah. I'll give you 30 days, you got to get out. Now he thought that he was doing the right thing because he's going with the LWRP, he's going with the plan. But the funny thing about the plan is even though the city of Hudson voted to approve the plan, the state of New York never approved the plan. So, but you guys got to go. That's part of the plan, and kicked us out because he thinks that over his shoulders he's got bulldozers coming in and they're going to beautify this area and there's going to be a nature trail that connects with the Land Conservancy and there's going to put a kayak launch over here and erase those 3 shacks and we'll put a gazebo there. And so he thinks there's bulldozers coming. He's got it right. Well, you guys got to go. Boom, and he booted us out. Then, once we're gone, no bulldozers are coming. There's no plan. If you look at the Land Conservancy plan, that was, I guess, and then somehow a year after that, he gave possession of some land down there to management of the Columbia Land Conservancy or something like that, and blah, blah, blah. And if you look at the Land Conservancy's plan, because the Land Conservancy has a plan as well as the local waterfront revitalization plan, so there's 2 plans, but if you look at a Land Conservancy plan, they deal with the issues of years of the shack area. They deal with that in years 7, 8, and 9. The nature trails go in years 4 and 5 or something like that. And right now, the Columbia Land Conservancy just got the money from the state of New York, and they're going to cut some trails to connect an area just east of those shacks with the Columbia Land Conservancy trails. It takes you up to Greenport Conservation Area, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so coming along, because I guess we've been out of those shacks now for 5 years. So their plan is coming along. Meanwhile, the hunters and fishermen, we have to meet each other in the supermarket and beep at each other passing on the street. Or, we have no place to go because fishing and hunting, there's a lot involved with carrying guns and decoy ducks and nets and fishing poles. And it's very convenient to have a shack. So anyway, the plan goes, we got to go. We're booted out of there. Now the city has these shacks, and there's nothing they can do with them. They can't let us back in. Got to save face. And there's no bulldozers coming. And now it just sits. It's a big flop, which could have been used by sportsmen who, I have a fishing license somewhere, and other guys have hunting licenses, and we buy outboard motor fuel tax and all kinds of fees we pay. But no more. And from my understanding, was the last authentic fishing village east of the Mississippi River. And it started out as just a bunch of boathouses, The boat comes in off the shore, and what are we going to do with this stuff we got in the boat? Well, we'll put it here. Henry Hudson had the same problem. Henry Hudson and his crew, they didn't want to stay on a boat. They wanted to get on the land. They're tired of all that rocking around. So that's the jumping off point.
Well, I think that's a really good spot to end. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Michael. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to leave it now for any sort of questions you may have for either Michael or I. So the floor is open. Yes. I think there are a couple of ways to approach this, one of which is the historical aspect, where, as Michael said, that the fishing village was one of the last remaining authentic fishing villages north of the Mississippi, and now it's defunct, basically. And so that, in a way, is talking about, it was like a sanctuary for history itself, for a time past. And then in another way to talk about it is, so it was a representation of the community of Hudson at large. It was an open space. It was openly constructed, and everyone pitched in to take care of all of the villages. And like, so I talked to some older folks up in Hudson as well, and heard from them, and then they would talk about what their parents said, where during the Great Depression, the shacks were the place to go during the summer to meet with the community, where there was one woman who told me it was like when you could go nowhere else, when like food was really sparse and like no one really had any jobs, it was for the community of Hudson, like going to the Jersey Shore. And so yeah, I mean, then I'm gonna have to work out in my final paper the ways in which that was applied, and just some different angles to go about it. I think that answers that question. Yeah. Any other questions?
We wait. This past summer, the city has let us back onto the property. We're not allowed into the shacks, but we're allowed to go back on that property down there. The Land Conservancy Plan addresses the need there in the years 7, 8, and 9, but in the past year or two, the state of New York has designated it historic. And so you can't tear down historic to fit the Land Conservancy Plan. So I don't know. Now, I do understand that the city just received $10 million in some sort of grant that's supposed to be spent west of 2nd Street, and that includes that area. And I've heard talk that there's designated money as part of that $10 million to go to something down in that area. But I just follow the local media and talk to as many people as I can to get my information.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I was able to talk on the phone with the current mayor, Tiffany Hamilton, for maybe 2 minutes, and that was one of the questions that I asked her was, given this $10 million grant, are there going to be any funds that are going to be allocated for that area around the fishing village or the village themselves? And she just was very dismissive about it. And I guess there was either not an actual plan in progress, or it kind of seemed like she didn't really want to talk about it. So, yeah. Anyone else?
I don't claim ownership to anything down there, and I don't claim to be a member of anything down there. Just a resident of the city of Hudson who had full access to the area on a daily basis. There was a concerted effort by a group of people from the North Dock area that pooled their money together, and it was thousands of dollars, and they did hire an attorney and took the city to court, and things looked good in their favor, and the attorney filed the papers a day late. And after spending $30,000 or $40,000 on attorneys over a course of years, because it's 1989, they saw the writing on the wall, and they, retained more than one attorney over a course of years, and spent money on it. And when this guy filed the papers a day late, everybody just kind of threw up their hands and gave up, because there were 12 different shacks down there and 12 different personalities and 12 different groups of people. So there was no chief. And everyone just kind of gave up. And that's what happened with the lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, the state of New York claims it's historic now, so they just can't take bulldozers to historic without a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask, is the land actually owned by the city?
the city owns the land. And then in that whole area down there, the state owns some things and the city owns some things. And then there was a title swap where they swapped titles for parcels of land down there. And from some of the fellows that I talked to, there was some shady deals made, you know, on these land swaps, and I'm not too familiar with all of that. But
The eviction was actually done by city.
the city of Hudson came in with a SWAT team at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. There were 3 fellows down there asleep, and city of Hudson SWAT team threw them to the floor with guns at their heads, handcuffed them, took them up to the police station and let them go. Because somebody got a little nervous. That one of the fellas, when he was kind of drunk, he's saying, they'll take me out of here over my dead body, or something gonna have to take me out with a tank. And well, they came in and somebody got nervous. They came in. They could have just given us notice, like Monday morning by 8, somebody closed the gate and lock it on your way out, and we would have done that. But they were afraid that, you know, because hunters and fishermen that drink beer down there, somebody might have a gun. They came in and picked up 3 guys. And to this day, they kind of shake about it, because, you know, they're good guys all their lives. And somebody waking them up with a gun on their head at 3 o'clock in the morning and a flashlight in their eye, you know, screaming, it's kind of a scary thing. So they're still affected by that.
And now you say people can go into the area, but not into the shacks.
You can't go in the shacks, but you can drive in the area. I was in there this morning. Kind of a ritual thing for a lot of people in the city of Hudson. Get up in the morning, drive down to the river, take a look, turn around, go the other way, and then go to the post office and the bank and do what you have to do.
Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you all. Yeah, thank you, Michael.
My pleasure.
Yeah.